I'm Calliope, I'm 32, and 3 nights ago I bled all over a marble floor because of a man who calls himself family. My father-in-law, Dorian Corwin, Boston royalty in his own mind, punched me in front of 50 people, while violins played in the background. His fist hit so hard my ears rang, and you know what my husband said? Not, "Are you okay?" Not, "Stop." He looked me dead in the eye and said, "Apologize, or get out." So I left. Walked out with blood on my lip and every set of eyes glued to me like it was theater. I thought that was the end of it. I thought I could go home, lock the door, and forget. But when I finally looked at my phone, there were 68 missed calls. From him, from Dorian, from numbers I didn't recognize. What could they possibly want after that? Why won't they just let me disappear? I'm about to tell you, but let me warn you. What they did next wasn't just cruel, it was calculated. They wanted to break me, silence me. They forgot one thing. I know how to fight quietly. And when I'm done, they'll wish I had stayed silent. Have you ever been humiliated so badly you swore you'd burn it all down? Tell me in the comments. I want to know who's listening. Boston winters have a way of biting through even the thickest coat. But the Corwin mansion glowed like summer that night. White stone, floor-to-ceiling windows, every chandelier blazing like they were daring the city to notice. I stood on the front steps clutching a gift bag and the fake smile I'd practiced in the mirror. Inside, the warmth hit like a trap. Crystal clinking, laughter pitched just high enough to remind you where you stood. The dining hall stretched like a cathedral, mahogany table polished to a mirror, 20 guests draped in wealth and boredom. I found my place at the edge, a name card barely keeping me from being furniture. Conversations swirled around me. Ski trips in Aspen, hedge fund mergers, a chef flown in from Paris, each word sharpening the line between them and me. 3 years. 3 years of swallowing comments like poison pills. So lucky to have married up. Remind me again, where did you go to school? Jabs dressed as jokes. And I took them, every single one, because I thought love could buffer cruelty. Then it happened. So fast it barely felt real. I was carrying a glass of wine, red, deep as blood, when my heel caught on the edge of an ornate rug. A splash, a gasp, and crimson bloomed across Dorian Corwin's pristine white shirt. Silence fell, heavy and suffocating. I swear you could hear the fire crackle in the next room. Dorian turned, slow as a predator. His hand gripped my wrist first, iron fingers biting into skin. Then came the punch. A crack, a flash of white, then heat exploding across my cheek. My knees wobbled, but I stayed standing because collapsing would have felt like surrender. Blood dripped from my lip onto the marble floor. Somewhere, a violin kept playing like nothing had happened. And that was worse than the pain. Because this wasn't chaos. It was a show. 50 people watched like they'd paid for the tickets. A few turned their heads, pretending interest in their champagne. One woman smirked into her glass. No one moved. No one spoke. Except him. "You stupid maid," Dorian snarled, voice slicing through the quiet. "Wash my damn shirt!" I turned to Alaric. My husband. The man who swore he'd love me, protect me. He didn't reach for me, didn't flinch. His jaw was set, his voice colder than the snow outside. "Apologize or get out." Something in me cracked then. Not from the pain, but from the betrayal. I wiped the blood with a silk napkin, placed it neatly on the table, and walked out. No apology. No tears, just the echo of my heels on marble and the weight of 50 stairs pressing into my back. My apartment felt smaller than ever that night. Its soft light couldn't chase away the shadows that had followed me home. The Corwin mansion still clung to my skin. The chandeliers, the marble, the sound of laughter choking the air as Dorian's fist connected with my face. I kicked off my heels, dropped my coat on the couch, and just stood there, staring at the blinking phone on the table. 68 missed calls. From Alaric. From Dorian. From numbers I didn't recognize. The screen lit up again. Another text. Pick up. Don't make this worse. Another. You embarrassed my family. Fix it. I sank onto the bed, the phone heavy in my palm. The words kept coming. Apologies disguised as orders. Warnings dressed as concern. Then, buried in the thread, one voicemail I hadn't played yet. My thumb hovered, then tapped. Accidents happen. Dorian's voice slid through the speaker, smooth and cold. But if you make this bigger than it needs to be, you'll regret it. I have the best lawyers in Boston. Think carefully, Colopy. I stared at the ceiling, his words pressing down like weights. That was the game. Break me in private, then bury me in paperwork if I dared to speak. For a moment, the old me, the one who spent 3 years smiling through dinner table jabs, wanted to call Alaric, to plead, to make it right. But then another voice cut through, softer but stronger. My mother's. Silence doesn't protect you, Collie. It just keeps you invisible. I hadn't heard her in years, not since cancer stole her from me. But tonight her words felt like steel sliding into my spine. I pushed myself off the bed and walked to the small desk by the window. Under a pile of bills and takeout menus, I found it. A worn leather notebook. At first, it was just a diary. Then it became something else. A ledger. A record. Every slight. Every insult. Every moment they tried to make me small. I flipped through the pages. The jokes about my humble background. The time Dorian hinted at a prenup after the wedding. Every entry sharp and angry. My handwriting digging trenches into the paper. This wasn't just therapy. This was evidence. The phone buzzed again. I didn't look. Instead, I reached for the drawer where I kept a small USB drive. Old habit from my marketing job before the Corwins. Backup for when things went bad. My fingers closed around it, and something inside me hardened. If they wanted silence, they picked the wrong woman. I opened my laptop. Not for social media, not for work, for research. Restraining orders. Domestic abuse statutes. Pro bono legal aid in Boston. My search history became a war map. Outside my window, Boston pulsed quietly. Cars slicing through icy streets. Red taillights glowing like embers. 2 worlds separated by glass. Theirs, gilded and untouchable. Mine, stripped to bone and resolve. By 3 a.m., my notebook was filled with names, dates, and a new line scrawled across the top of a page. Find someone who knows how men like Dorian fall. By sunrise, my apartment looked like a battlefield. Papers scattered, coffee cups lining the counter, and me, wide awake, gripping the pen like a weapon. I wasn't ready to strike yet, but I wasn't prey anymore. Tomorrow, I'd take the first step, and God help Dorian Corwin when I do. The next morning, Boston wore its usual gray armor, slush on the sidewalks, breath fogging in the cold. But I walked fast, clutching the address I'd scribbled at 3 a.m. The community legal clinic wasn't glamorous. Wedged between a laundromat and a discount shoe store, its windows fogged with condensation, it looked like a place life sends you when every door has slammed shut. Inside, the air smelled like old carpet and burnt coffee. Behind a battered desk sat a woman in her 60s, silver hair pulled back, glasses on a chain. She looked up when I hovered in the doorway. "Can I help you?" I need advice," I said, voice cracking. She gestured to a chair. "Sit." Her name was Marjorie. Retired attorney, now volunteering, because someone has to. I told her everything, my voice stumbling at first, then pouring like floodwater. The party, the punch, the threats, the texts. She didn't interrupt, didn't give me pity. When I finished, her hands folded like iron hinges. "You're not crazy," she said flatly. "You're in a system designed to break you, but I've seen men like Dorian Corwin fall before." Something in me sparked. Hope, maybe rage. She slid me a card. "Start small. Document everything. Then we talk protective orders. But brace yourself. Men like him don't fight fair. I nodded, clutching the card like a lifeline. For the first time in days, I didn't feel invisible. That lasted 24 hours. The pounding on my door came just after sunrise. At first, I thought it was a neighbor. But when I opened it, a man in an overcoat stood there with an envelope. "Are you Colopy Corwin?" His voice clipped mechanical. "Yes, you've been served." He pressed the envelope into my hands and walked away before I could breathe. I stood barefoot in the doorway, cold air bleeding in as I tore it open. The words swam. Defamation. Restraining order. They'd painted me as unstable, vindictive, a threat to the Corwin family's safety and reputation. The order barred me from their properties, their events, even contacting Alaric. My knees buckled. I sank onto the couch, papers trembling. I called him anyway. He answered on the second ring, voice flat. "You brought this on yourself, Colopy. I told you to let it go. He hit me, Alaric, in front of everyone. And now you're trying to ruin him. Don't drag me down with you." The line went dead. I sat frozen, the city waking beyond my window while my world caved in. When tears came, they weren't soft. They were molten. Because this wasn't defense anymore. This was annihilation. Hours later, in Marjorie's office, my hands still shook as I shoved the papers across her desk. She scanned them, jaw tightening. "Classic Dorian," she muttered. "And he's not done. I pulled strings. He bribed a former housekeeper to swear you had violent outbursts. They're building a narrative." The room tilted. "So he hits me and walks away the victim?" Marjorie leaned in, eyes like tempered glass. "That's what he thinks. But people like him only fight this hard when they're scared. Which means you've got leverage. Now we use it." I stared at her, panic cooling into something heavier, harder. This wasn't a plea anymore. It was a declaration. If Dorian Corwin wanted a war, he just declared it. It started in Marjorie's cramped office a week before Christmas. Files towered like brittle skyscrapers on her desk, and the radiator hissed like it had secrets of its own. I handed her a folder thick with notes, bank statements, and screenshots of every threat Dorian ever texted me. She flipped through page after page, a slow smile curving at the edge of her mouth. "You've been busy," she said. Busy doesn't cover it. Inside that folder wasn't just my pain. It was a map to his empire. Property transfers tucked into shell trusts. Luxury condos shifted between LLCs with no clear owners. And then the gem. A confidential memo hinting at offshore accounts tied to charity funds. "This," Marjorie tapped the memo, "will burn him to the ground. Are you ready for that? Because once we do this, there's no going back." I thought of the night at the mansion. Of blood blooming on marble while 50 people watched. Of Alaric's voice. "Apologize or get out." "There's nothing left to go back to," I said. Marjorie nodded once, sharp as a blade. Then we scorched the earth. For days I lived like a ghost with a purpose. Library archives, public records, digging through old business filings until my eyes blurred. Every click felt like stacking ammunition. At night, I drafted anonymous emails to investigative journalists. No melodrama, just data. Facts so clean they cut on contact. The timing mattered. Dorian worshipped his image more than his wealth. And nothing showcased that image like the Corwin Foundation's annual Christmas Eve gala, an opulent shrine to his own benevolence. Cameras, donors, press hungry for a headline. Perfect. The night arrived, icy and electric. I wore black, not mourning, armor. The ballroom glittered with chandeliers, champagne, and lies. No one stopped me at the door. The Corwins were too proud to admit I existed. I spotted him instantly at the podium, voice booming, every syllable polished for applause. "Together, we make Boston stronger." My phone buzzed in my clutch. A timer hit 0. Across the room, screens lit up as phones vibrated in unison. The headline dropped like a guillotine. Real estate mogul Dorian Corwin under federal investigation for fraud, misuse of charity funds. Whispers cracked like gunfire. Heads turned. Cameras lifted. Dorian's face blanched, then flushed crimson as he fumbled through words. This is slander. An attack on my family. He didn't finish. Two federal agents strode in, calm and inevitable. They served him under the glow of his own chandeliers while donors stared like they'd wandered into the wrong movie. Someone filmed as he erupted, voice breaking into rage. Exactly the image I wanted burned into the internet forever. Alaric found me near the exit, his face pale, eyes frantic. Colopy, what did you do? I met his gaze without blinking. What you were too afraid to. You've ruined everything, he spat. No, Alaric, I said, stepping past him. I saved myself. Outside, the night was sharp enough to slice skin, but I breathed it in like victory. Behind me, chaos bloomed in crystal and velvet. Ahead, the street stretched clean and silent, like a blank page waiting for my story to rewrite itself. And for the first time in years, I wasn't walking out. I was walking forward. The fallout didn't happen with explosions. It happened in silence, just the way Dorian hated. His name slid off consulting boards. Invitations dried up. The gala fiasco rippled through Boston's elite like a virus they couldn't scrub. And when the federal probe froze his accounts, the Corwin empire cracked like thin ice. Marjorie called it poetic justice. I just called it over. Weeks later, I moved into a one-bedroom overlooking the harbor. Small, yes, but mine. No marble floors, no chandeliers, just sunlight pooling across wood, and quiet that felt like freedom, not exile. Then came the text. Can we talk? Against my better judgment, I agreed. We met in a corner cafe, the kind where no one cared about last names. Alaric was already there, suit immaculate, eyes hollow. He didn't look like the man who once ordered me to apologize. He looked broken. I'm sorry, he said, voice low. I was scared. Scared of losing everything. My career, my family. I thought silence would protect us. I let the words hang, waiting for them to mean something. They didn't. If you love me, he started, maybe we can rebuild. I pulled my hand back before he could reach it. I'm done rebuilding houses that were never safe for me. His face crumpled, but I didn't stay to comfort him. I stood, left a few bills on the table, and walked out. Outside, winter air cut sharp against my cheeks. I paused at the harbor on the way home, the water dark and endless under a bruised sky. For years, I'd let that family shrink me, twist me into silence. Tonight, I wasn't silent. I wasn't theirs. I was mine. When I reached my apartment, the boxes were finally gone. My life fit on clean shelves now. I brewed coffee, opened the window, and let the salt wind rush in. Before bed, I sent one text to Marjorie. Thank you for reminding me how loud I could be. And then, for the first time in months, I slept without fear. If you've ever been told to stay quiet, if someone tried to bury your voice, drop your story in the comments. Because here's the truth. Silence doesn't keep you safe. It just keeps you small. Speak, even if your voice shakes.